look at me that way. What gives you the right?
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World.
What makes you think I'm listening?
My name is Hilary Seabrook and this podcast is inspired by a Quincy Jones quote which goes something along the lines of imagine what a harmonious world it would be if everyone shared a little of what they're good at. So the idea is that I talk to lots of musicians about what they do that makes the world a better place. And I am delighted that for this episode, I am joined by pianist, singer, songwriter, arranger, Nicole Zuraitis, who I saw last year at Pizza Express on the King's Road when she did an audience with Nigel Williams from Jazz FM. It was an amazing gig and I was really blown away by her talent. So I'm absolutely delighted that she's able to join me for a conversation now. And in fact, she's going to be back in the UK in May. All of the links for everything are in the show notes. And what you're listening to right now is the fabulous What Gives You the Right with the amazing Christian McBride on double bass.
What makes you think that I want your affection?
I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Nicole Zuraitis.
But I've run out of objections. What gives you the right to make me fall for you?
Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining me for Harmonious World.
Of course. No, so lovely to meet you. And it's great to chat now, finally, after
absolutely.
A year,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. At that point, you had literally just won the Grammy. Let's start with that Grammy, because that's really quite a spectacular achievement, isn't it? So you won for Best Jazz Vocal Album in the 2024 Grammy Awards.
It was a wild, wild moment and a huge win for independent artists and artists who have been, doing their own career for years and years and years.
Yeah, and I think the whole point about you being an independent artist is a big deal, because I think it's very easy for the big players who have the, a whole record label behind them. They have PR companies, they have everything, working for them, and you don't have that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that when you win something of that prestige and that big, people assume like, oh well, she must be from wealth or she must have had gigantic financial help. But the thing that is so amazing about me winning is that it's just me. It's me and my husband and our tiny little team of people. And what spoke to the peers in the Recording Academy was the music. It's just even the playing field for everybody, whoever strives to maybe, achieve a Grammy. But, we didn't make the music for a Grammy at all. We just made it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful gift that we got.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were up against some really tough competition as well last year. I mean, every year it's tough, but your album really shone out.
Yeah, I think that despite there being, well-known names, that I was the most indicative of the genre that year. And I think people were really excited to listen to a singer-songwriter who wrote and arranged all the music herself. The only other time in the category that's been close, I think, was 12 Little Spells, but Esperanza had multiple arrangers and co-writers and orchestrators working on that with her. And my little pitch was, I wrote all this music. It gives back to the environment. It has activism within it. It has beautiful players, and It's my sixth album. So, I didn't come out of nowhere.
No, absolutely. And I think that we'll talk about the activism because I think that's really important because it's obviously important to you and it's obviously important to your music. But I think this stands on its music. And I think perhaps if you had a record label, they would be saying, oh, well, we've got this arranger, we've got this composer. Why don't you work with them? Give them, a couple of tracks on the album and that sort of thing. And you don't have that pressure.
Yeah, you get to make every decision and you get to live with every decision that you make. There's no one to blame when something works or doesn't work. The only thing that, I've been kind of on this train lately, on this hill. The only thing that we're really fighting against is algorithm. And that's something I just haven't quite figured out yet. But I really want to kind of work on the social media and all the numbers game this year. But for me, when I produce and arrange and write an entire album, the only person at the end of the day that I can say, well, that was you. Those are all your choices. Did it work? Yes. Did it not work? No. Is it a snapshot of a moment in time that you recorded and you're glad that you have it? Yes. Nothing's ever perfect. I don't look at How Love Begins and go, yeah, that's a great record. I hear so many mistakes in it. But I also am like, wow, I made executive decisions on every single second of that album. And my peers voted for it to win. And it's changed my life for the better. And I'm extremely grateful.
Interesting hearing you talk about the algorithm because one of the first people I interviewed was Maria Schneider and her album Data Lords had just come out in 2020. And that's exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah, we're fighting really against a machine. I love that Maria Schneider album, Data Lords. Dan Pugach, my husband, who also won a Grammy this year. What the heck? He we saw that live, and yeah, she's been saying it. I've been saying it. We are in the changing tide of the music industry, like the geriatric millennials and above. As when I finally figured out how to use MySpace or whatever, then all of a sudden it was Facebook, and then it was Instagram, then it was TikTok. And in the meantime, I'm still like working on CD Baby and printing, just like working on my website. Like my website was the end all be all, spending all my time and energy. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, what? TikTok? What? So it kind of like, I think, skipped a generation a little bit. And there's a couple of people that, have spectacular talent that were chosen, as the chosen people for, especially in jazz. But there's not enough room in a label, especially with no more funding and labels not wanting to do any of the hard work, which is the marketing. So the beautiful part is that the independent artists, because of these social media platforms, which I'm growing to embrace, we do have the ability to market ourselves and control that as well. So I'm just fighting the algorithm and trying to reach bigger audiences. And I don't know how to do the viral thing, but if it happens to me, I would be super grateful. But if not, I have a beautiful career and a lovely following. We're just working with what we got.
I think your music proves its worth in and of itself.
You're so sweet. Thanks. I'm trying, man.
No, but I know, but it's true. It's true. And I really like your your relationship with Dan and the fact that he's won a Grammy this year and
I mean, that was crazy. We're both doing the hardest thing possible. We are writing music in jazz that does not fit within any box. We don't sound like anybody. You can't compare him or I to any living or deceased jazz artists and say they sound like X. And that is the hardest thing to do in jazz because jazz loves a comparison. Jazz loves nostalgia and jazz loves tradition. And as two people who have lived and breathed the tradition of jazz, done our homework, lived in we bebop, blues, Great American Songbook, modern, fusion. We lived in those spaces and we studied and we learned the language. It's still the most difficult thing for a jazz artist to be like, cool, I love the tradition, but I am choosing to use my own unique voice. Dan with his big band, me with my songwriting. And we're hopefully carving a path for more songwriters and composers to be like, I don't have to copycat and imitate in order to be successful in this genre. And at some point, I would love if the people at the top who hold the keys to major festivals, et cetera, are also like, wow, people who are boundary pushing is why people love jazz. Why is everything an imitation?
Yeah, and I think I think you're absolutely right. And I think that you're right about the festivals, the record labels, the people that hold the power in jazz. And there are probably very, very few of them around the world, actually, but they're the ones that have the power. Pool. Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a shame because they're only listening to the people they're listening to, and they're not, trying to find I don't think they're trying to find really exciting new stuff that is really genuinely exciting. I think there's a lot of imitation, as you say.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
It is a shame. And eventually, like the tables will turn. And I'm working with Larry Klein on a new album, and he said something so beautifully. He said, Nicole, I love to live in the cracks, because the cracks is where the music happens and the music shape shifts and moves forward. And so, How Love Begins, when I wrote that music, I purposely wrote it with like playlists in mind. Like I was like, okay, I need an up-tempo fast song that's swinging, that features Christian McBride, so that I can hopefully get people to be like, oh, look, that's jazz, quote unquote, jazz, unquote, end quote. And, a year later,
yeah,
after being like gaslit extremely hard by the industry, I'm like, oh, well, I fooled you. It's like, I literally was like, I released 6 albums and then 6 other albums as a sideman, to like decent acclaim, but like no amplification. And so then I went to business school during COVID, got my MBA, and I thought about, how do I get to where I need to be? Okay, well, let me do a social experiment. Let me write an album specifically that can sit side by side next to like an Ella album or a Cecile, Standards album, whatever, that I wrote, and see if that works. And it did work. For a while there, I was on Sirius XM Jazz, and they voted me the top album of 2023. And the minute I won, they took me off the air, because the guy who's in charge is, I don't know, mad that an independent artist got amplified by her peers. It's a very strange time, and that's why I love Jazz FM.
And yeah, oh, absolutely. Nigel Williams, I have so much respect for that man, because he does, and he kind of gets what's going on, and he sort of plays with the big boys, but he doesn't play their game,
I'm obsessed with him. That's exactly how I feel. I feel like Nigel is always looking at artists that other people are just like, oh, we don't know what to do with them. And Nigel just zones in and uses his ears and his big heart. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned so both Nigel Williams and Larry Klein. Bring me round to Jo Harrop. Have you heard her stuff?
She is a dear friend.
Is she? Oh, I'm so glad. You should be friends.
Yeah, she's actually going to sit in with me at Ronnie's when I come.
Oh God, isn't she amazing?
She is amazing, and she's, again, like, speaking of big hearts, and that's the scene that I am trying to cultivate within my power, is a community, as opposed to like ostracizing and amplifying only a chosen few. I really believe that there's plenty of room at the table for everybody. So Jo is a great singer. She's also a writer, and she's also a brunette.
Yeah.
ooh, like we shouldn't be friends. No, we're buddies. Like most of my favorite people in the world are singers.
Right.
And we lift each other up because I can't be in Hamburg and also Berlin on the same day, but my
Yeah.
friend Lucy Woodward can play in Berlin and I can play in Hamburg, and then we just swap. There is room. So community is so huge. And that I think that's what I found my calling to be after, a year or so of being like the Grammy winner who like wasn't supposed to quote unquote win the Grammy because she's a nobody. I was like, excuse me, I've been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
So my whole purpose is like building community and just finding an audience that appreciates music that lives in the cracks.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Let's talk about Christian McBride. So I interviewed him back in November 2023, and it's one of my most popular podcast episodes. Everyone goes, "Oh, you interviewed Christian McBride. How does that happen?"
And
Well,
Mario,
yeah, absolutely. But that track that he's on, is it What Gives You the Right?
Yeah, and my friend Abby Gardner wrote that.
Really? Okay. That's a lovely track. And his bass playing on that, you can tell it's him, just as one of my favorite tracks that he ever did is Dee Dee Bridgewater and what's the song they do?
It's Your Thing.
Yeah.
I know exactly the one.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm just going to stand here and play my bass and I'm just going to, nail it. And it's just, he's such a great player and such a lovely guy, isn't he?
He sure is. He's very playful in his playing.
Yeah.
And I think for my next album that he's gonna be playing on, I found this crazy song from like the 40s or 50s that's only been covered once maybe, and it's from Fortnite, the video game. My mom sent it to me because she's a special ed teacher and she works with children that have behavior disorders besides the special ed, and they play Fortnite. And she said they showed me the song. He's a demon, he's a devil, he's a doll. And I was like, oh, that should be the duet that Christian and I do on my next record. That's grateful.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So at this point in the podcast, I'd like to play a bit of a track. Now, you sent me Sirens. Is that coming out soon?
Yeah. So Siren Song Volume 1 came out. And then Siren Song Volume 2 comes out fully in June. And I don't know when this airs, but I don't mind a sneak peek.
Oh, excellent.
Go for it.
I love a sneak peek. Right. In that case, can we play a little bit of Close Your Eyes? And then can you tell me about how that song came about?
Sure, of course. Perfect.
Close your eyes, rest your head on my shoulder and sleep. Close your eyes, and I will close my your eyes. Let's pretend that we're both counting sheep by your side. Oh, this is divine. Music plays something dreamy for dancing while we're here romancing. It's love's holiday, and love will be our guide. Close your eyes. When I'm open them, dear, I'll be near by your side. Close your
So how did Close Your Eyes come about?
Well, so, Siren Songs is my homage to women songwriters and lyricists. And I also wanted to take a lot of the pressure off myself after, winning a Grammy, Schmammy, whatever. And everyone's like, what's your big follow-up record? And I'm like, what? What? Nobody's doing any big follow-ups. I'm just making art. So here's 2 little EPs that I like, that I didn't write, that I arranged with my amazing band. So Siren Songs, Volume 1. This is from Volume 2. And I started singing Close Your Eyes with the Birdland Big Band in New York City because I sang with them as their main vocalist for 6 years. And Close Your Eyes is written by Bernice Paquer. It's, Tin Pan Alley, all woman wrote lyric music, and it's featuring Carmen Staff on the piano and Dan Pugach on the drums, Sam Weber on the bass, and then I'm singing it. And I just love this tune. And yeah. And I wanted also to be like, see, I can do the jazz. That's a standard. See?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I really like about you is the way you lift up other people, especially other women. And I think that's so important because there's so much of putting people down and just ignoring and hoping they'll just, run back into their corner,
I found that, I don't mind. Again, people are catching me this year. This is the year of, we won a second Grammy with Dan's record. We're touring all over the world. I never had confidence ever in myself. And last year I was gaslit so hard by the industry that I felt like I didn't deserve any of the good things that were happening to me. But now you're catching me, a year and a half later going, I watched the people that I was quote unquote up against in the Grammys completely ignore me and or be cruel to me and or not lift me up. And that still breaks my heart into a million pieces, because I have never once, nobody would ever be able to say, Nicole, she's cutthroat and cruel. And so I'm just really digging into lifting people, especially women, because I know what it feels like to have other women, try and cut me down, especially when it's like the most amazing moment of my life. And maybe one day they'll hear it, and I'm not gonna not say it anymore, because man, it was a crazy thing to go through that. When your peers who you really look up to are like horrified by this beautiful gift that they've already all gotten.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Part,
yeah.
So it's exciting to be like, okay, if I have to be the disruptor or the trailblazer, and I have to be the person that takes the punches with the beauty as well, so be it. That's just where I'm gonna live.
Yeah, brilliant. One of the other things I liked was when you were at the Pheasant Tree with Nigel Williams, your band was two guys that you'd never met before until that afternoon. That was insane.
Yeah, that was insane.
But it was great.
It was great. Oh my gosh, it was chaos. No, I mean, listen, as the touring is so hard, because unless you have, like, I finally have a beautiful agent in Europe that like string shows back to back. But if it's a one-off show, how can you fly internationally for people?
Yeah.
And so I put a lot of faith into local musicians when I play. And, we had a wonderful time with Neville on the bass and Kai on the drums. But we didn't have a guitar, it's just me on the piano. Like, if you had asked me 10 years ago when I was still kind of learning the piano, I would be playing the piano and singing an entire show, or playing the piano and singing with Christian McBride. I would tell you, you're insane.
Yeah.
But we got to do what we got to do. And are there moments and pick up band shows that I'm like, man, I miss my band? Sure. But there's also like a power to just being like, okay, well, the songs have to speak for themselves because I'm singing and playing them. And this is where you really know if you need the bells and whistles of the solos and whatever. And so I learned a lot actually by doing those. And a lot of the songs I'm writing now are just a little bit more simple, right, and catchy. And I don't know. I'm just taking a little turn in my next songwriting venture.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's great. So you're coming to London on the 27th of May. What can people expect?
I'm bringing my band from New York, which is so
Yeah.
exciting. So it's Idam Marim on the guitar. He's an unbelievable guitarist. I've been playing with him since 2014 at the 55 bar. We had a monthly residency once a month. Him, Dan, and I would play. And then Sam Weber on the bass. I met him playing in church in 2016, and he joined the band 2019. And then Dan, of course, Dan Pugach, who we started playing together in 2009.
Wow.
And we were friends first, played music together, we're each other's muses, and then now we're married. and we do everything together, which is so beautiful. And a set of mine is, original music. We'll throw a standard or two, deep cut arrangements, country and folk influences. And then, I love to talk to the audience. So it's not an insular, isolating jazz show. I tend to maybe overshare or over banter. You've seen it.
I've seen it. It's great though, because it feels like, this music is for us, together. It's a collective thing, whether it's you playing and us listening, but it's for us all together. It's great.
Oh, that's so nice, Hillary. You're so sweet. I'm so glad that we met at that show. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And you have to promise me you're going to play I Like You a Latte. I love that song.
That song I can't. It haunts me everywhere I go.
Yeah, but it's fun.
It really is fun. And I wrote it because actually there's a cool little, I might have said it at the Pheasantry, I can't remember, but the New York Coffee Festival started in London, and from my friend Jeffrey, and they did this coffee music competition where if you won the competition, you got to record the song and perform at the coffee festivals. And the only criteria was to write a song with coffee in it. And I thought they wanted me to write a song about coffee. So that's why the whole song is about coffee. But we ended up winning. And that was like one of the first times I had ever won anything, because I was a late bloomer to jazz. Yeah. Didn't even start trying to, quote unquote, make it till I was 30. So it's an interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, there you go. Hey, listen, it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, Nicole. Thank you so much for your time.
It was really a pleasure.
I've been around the block, they say, traveled round the world for days, and despite my wandering eye, I know that you're my guide, my darling dear barista fellow, who starts my day with some espresso. I've chosen you to make this work. The cappuccinos are just a perk. I've had the blonde roast, I've had the dark roast, I've even had the Brazilian too, but none of those roasts come close to you, 'cause I like you a latte. I've had the tall shot.
Thank you for joining me for the latest episode of Harmonious World, and I hope you enjoyed listening to my conversation with Nicole Zuraitis. Please do share this. If you share it with one person and they like listening to Harmonious World, finding out about new music, then that will just help me keep doing what I'm doing. You can also subscribe for a very small amount of money per month, and then you get an extra email from me and you get some additional episodes just looking behind the scenes at what I do. One of the things I'm working on is doing some video content which will be exclusively for subscribers, so get involved. All the links are in the show notes. But thank you for joining me for Harmonious World, and have a great week.
come close to you, 'cause I like you a latte. I said that I like you, yeah. I said that I like you, yeah. Ooh, I like you, yeah. I said that I like you, yeah. I said that I like you, yeah. I said that I like you, yeah. Yeah. I love you a latte.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.